So, you live in America and you want to bug out to Canada in SHF, Global Disaster Catastrophe. And why not? Canada's a big country. In fact, Canada is the second biggest country in the world. Second biggest country in the world. First is Russia. A lot of Americans don't know that. They think America's the biggest country in the world. It ain't even the second. Anyway, so you decide to come to Canada because, to be honest with you, that'd be a smart move. To bug out to Canada would be a smart move. But a lot of Americans don't realise that. Now, a lot of Canadians can easily pass for Americans, especially in Europe. Whenever I go back to England, listen to my voice, all they hear is Canadian and think I'm an American. And they try and rip me off with money in the shops. Terrible people, the British. Avoid Britain. Don't bug out to Britain. But Canada's nice. Eh? Most of the time we'll actually give you the right change. Now, you may be tempted in Canada as an American to make funny little jokes about Canada. You know, how we talk, eh? Boot? All that sort of thing. Even attack our beer. After all, you've been raised to believe that America is best, right? Now you're in Canada. So if you're going to bug out to Canada, you have to change your mindset. America will no longer be the greatest country in the world, right? It might be, and you probably still will in your heart believe that. But in your mouth, you must say that Canada is the greatest country in the world, but you don't want to go on and on about it. Because Canadians are a little bit polite and a little bit reticent about some things, but not about others. And these other things could trap you if you're an American, and you might stand out in SHTF in Canada. Now, language divides us. Canadians speak Canadian English, which is not English English, and it's closer to American English than English English. And one of the problems is the American corporation Microsoft have Word across the world, and in Canada, the default setting for Word documents is American English. Something that traps my students over and over and over, because I make big squirrels around it. So if you're going to come to Canada, make an effort to learn how we talk, how we write, and how we measure things. Measurements. For example, no one has a clue what an American gallon is. I don't think Americans know what an American gallon is. Everybody knows what a litre is, apart from Americans. Expect any of us in Canada to convert for you our measurements into your measurements, because you know what? We have no clue what they are. I'm old enough to sort of know what a pint is, but most people have no idea. They won't know what you're talking about. So try and learn a bit of metric before you come up here. It's helpful, and it could save you a lot of trouble. Because if somebody says to you, it's about 5k down that road, and you think that 5k is 5 miles, you will arrive there a lot faster, because 5 kilometers is about 3.18 miles, and 5 miles is about 8 kilometers. 10 kilometers is about 6.2 kilometers an hour. Now this is especially important if you're in a car, because when you see signs that say 100 or 90 on the side of the road, and you go at 100 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour, Canada has a socialist government, and our police force like to catch people who are speeding. And if you go that much over the posted speed limit, which is in fact 90 or 100 kilometers an hour, i.e. maximum speed 62 miles an hour, and they catch you driving at 100 miles an hour, they will charge you for speed racing and take away your car. Now there are some advantages to Canada, principally that once you have landed status here, you will be able to get access to our nice healthcare system, where we ration healthcare by the ability to wait a long time and not die, as opposed to being able to pay for it. Both systems have negatives, but ours is cheaper than yours and we like it. Yes, Canadian healthcare. Do not attack Canadian healthcare. Do not even try to tell a Canadian that healthcare should be privatised or a little bit privatised to make it more efficient. You will find they will talk your ear off and be very annoyed. It's an emotional subject in Canada. It's one of the very few things that makes us not Americans. The other thing you might want to think about when you come up here is English. From this map you'll notice that the red areas mostly or all speak English. The blue areas mostly don't. They mostly speak French. This shocked me when I went to Quebec City years and years ago. I honestly thought they could all speak English or just pretending to be French. No. Outside of the capital cities of Quebec City and Montreal and Ottawa, a lot of the actual locals in the Quebec area just speak French. So if you're going to bug out there from Maine, you might want to consider a French-English dictionary. Also bear in mind, learning French won't help you at all. What they speak in Quebec is called French, but it's really not French at all. In fact, when the Quebecois go to Paris, France, Francais, and speak Quebec French, the French really have a hard time understanding them. Now, a lot of Canada is trees. We're starting to burn them all down by wildfires and climate change, but that's just pity. Most people in Canada actually believe in human-caused climate change. So outside of the select few loud people on YouTube, you will find most people in Canada actually do accept human-caused climate change, and most people in Canada do accept a more moderate and more moral viewpoint of other human beings' activities. So don't come up here thinking that all gays and lesbians need to be burned. It probably won't go over very well. And do come up here expecting the winters to be quite cold. Outside of British Columbia, winters can get quite cold up here. Now, there is a saying, Canada has 5 months of winter, a month of bugs, and 6 months of road construction. Well, that's true in the cities. Outside of the cities, basically we have 6 months of bugs, 5 months of winter, and 5 months where it's kind of nice but probably raining. Now, say you manage to get to Canada, you're bugged out, the balloon's gone up, the world's ended, and you decide that you're going to come and hack yourself a cabin in the Canadian wilderness, eh? One of the things you might want to do is you might want to bring some stuff with you that you need, because you're going to find a hard time getting automatic weaponry. So you really want to pack your pack full of ammunition. Now when you get here you won't be able to use it, and if you do people will probably kill you. But anyway, it makes you feel better as an American. So one of the things you might want to do as an American is shed the attraction to weaponry. Canadians are much more attracted to other things, like being able to paddle a canoe correctly using a J-stroke. So the ability to use a J-stroke in most Canadian situations will be more valuable to you than being able to fast reload an AK-47. Sounds silly, but it's actually true, eh? Now, we love our natives, we do, our First Nations peoples. Try and avoid calling them Red Indians, try and avoid calling them natives, try and avoid calling them Native Americans. A lot of Canadian Aboriginals are really not liking that term because they don't like America anymore, which is a little bit sad, and they don't feel Canadian or American because they actually inhabit the continent before we came and stole it from them. So be a little bit sensitive. Now, I would advise you not to relocate near a native area. The reason for that is there's a large history in Canada of repression and genocide against our First Nations, and there is a chance in SHTF that they might actually kind of get angry about that. I can foresee in certain parts of Manitoba and Saskatchewan there might be violence, so that's not really the Canadian way, but I would kind of avoid heavily First Nations areas unless you can speak their languages. KD is craft dinner. Craft dinner is macaroni and cheese. Again, be a little bit careful when you're in the stores. When you buy something in Canada, it may not be the same thing that you would buy in America. Remember, Canada is a different country. Some Americans don't know that. As I said, our morals are a bit different up here, so be braced for that. If you're a snowflake on the right, or a snowflake Christian, you might find your beliefs in what you know to be true and everybody in your small town believes in to be radically disrespected in Canada. We kind of disrespect people's rights to be isolated from others. Now, one of the good things about Canada you will find is that marijuana is also illegal now, but it's also anyway illegally cheaper than in America. That's because we don't go around, mostly don't go around locking people up for using marijuana. We kind of say, hey, you're bad, eh? And maybe take a driver's license away from them. Now, the other shock Americans might have when they bug out to Canada is they come up to Canada and they expect Canada to be like this. They expect it to be beautiful lakes, lots of trees, moose wandering around, bear wandering around, all you have to do is shoot them and you can eat forever and it's a wonderful life. Now the truth of it is, most Canadians live very close to the American border in big cities. In fact, Toronto is bigger than Chicago in population size and still growing. So you want to come to Canada to avoid our major cities. Now that's pretty easy because we have about 5 of them, right? So you just don't go that way, you go that way, and you will be very quickly into a big open area. Now it's a big open area because it's very cold in the winter. That's why. So you need to have really good bushcrafting skills and really good mental resources, and probably take a lot of stuff with you to make it through in the Canadian wilderness. It's not quite as easy as you might think. Now another fundamental difference is football. Leaving aside the fact football is actually soccer, American football and Canadian football are very similar but different. Now Canadian football is a more skilled and harder game than American football. American football basically have like 25 teams who are on the field for like 4 seconds in heavy armour, and then they're carried off the field and they're given oxygen for an hour. Now the truth is, before you want to come up here and attack Canadian football, Canadians will attack Canadian football, but they don't like non-Canadians attacking it. The truth is, both games are very much like rugby union or rugby league in England and France and other places in the world, South Africa, but played with padding and lots of rest breaks. So neither of the games particularly physically hard, whereas rugby union is. Now the truth of it also is, for those people who live down below, is that Australian rules football is the toughest and hardest game in the world. So don't be saying your sport, your national sport's better than anybody else's national sport, because it isn't true. Now there are some differences in political systems between Canada and America. Leaving aside the obvious ones about, you know, two-party systems being corrupt and controlled by corporates and all the rest of it, if you look at Canada's system, you might think that this guy is the ruler of Canada. Sir Justin Trudeau. He was an ex-Prime Minister's son. But you'd be very, very, very wrong. Justin Trudeau is not the leader of Canada. Queen Elizabeth II, God bless you mom, is actually the leader of Canada, even though she very rarely comes here, and the majority of Canadians don't care about the Queen, don't bother themselves about the Queen. But if you attack the royalty in large parts of Canada, you will actually very much upset them. It is not a political ruler, so it's an emotional and, dare I say, spiritual ruler. Be careful attacking the Queen. Now if you come to Canada and you decide to move to Canada, one of the things you might want to give up on is being politically identified with whoever that guy is in the red tie. They're all wearing red ties, look very serious. In Canada, Donald Trump, other than about 4% of the population, is extremely unpopular. They don't buy his message, they don't like his message. So don't expect people to be very sympathetic to you if you come up here and start going about Trump. Best to avoid it. Now Canadians like to sit around and talk and drink beer, eh? And watch hockey and play hockey in the winter. And yeah, they do. We have hockey arenas built all over the spot, and people use their gardens and put ice down and they skate. Canadians are going to be more collective in their approach. So don't come up here thinking there's going to be a strong delineation between male and female preppers in any prepper group you join. There won't be. Don't expect there to be formalised leadership enforced by violence. There probably won't be. It will be more of a collective. Canadians are actually more happy to follow a leader that they have trust and belief in than to challenge a leader who's there because of violence. So if you are there because you are strong and you've got the AK-47, you come up in the States with your ammunition, don't expect Canadians in the bug out group to show you any respect at all. Canadians inherently are not frightened of firearms. They're not. Overall, Canadian preppers don't usually spend a lot of time and effort making YouTube videos showing you their favourite gun. A gun's a tool, it's a tool of survival, and it's a tool that you can use for various things. In principle, in Canada, most of us don't like the idea that lots of people might have access to guns. We would like guns to remain restricted, because if we have a gun and they don't, we feel a lot safer. Kind of. Now, be aware of the fact that a lot of your guns that you'll bring up with you from the States will be illegal in Canada. However, trading away your AK-47 automatics, you will be able to get such products as Kinder Eggs. If you eat a Kinder Egg, you probably will have less desire to use a weapon to kill people. In fact, you might even, if you're specifically Canadian, you would actually break the egg in half and offer it to a stranger, half of it to the stranger, and then you would wait a bit and find a little child and give them the toy. That's what Canadians would do. So Tim Hortons is an American company, but a lot of people are pretty too daft to notice it. A lot of people identify Tim Hortons with Canadian. It really isn't, but just be aware of that and try not to say you don't like it. And if anybody offers you a Timmy's, just say yes, even if it tastes like garbage. Also be aware of the fact that most people in Canada like and respect the police, and our police are trained for an average of 14 months. So they kind of know what they're doing, which actually is helpful. If you have police trained for a few weeks like that in some parts of the United States, don't be surprised if they accidentally shoot you because you're using a cell phone to call you a liar. Anyway, Canadians will probably make fun of you if they know you're an American. They probably will confuse you by asking you things like, go to the store and get me some milk, and you wander around for a long time and then realise the milk comes in plastic bags, and that we have chips that are Canadian chips. Ketchup being the particular one. Now I'm English, so I call chips crisps, because crisps are crisps, not chips. Chips are potatoes fried in oil. Anyway, that confusional aside, be aware of the fact that in the winter people don't tend to stay outdoors much, and they do tend to drink a lot. Do be aware of the fact that we use coins, and we like our coins. Yes, the $1 coin is called a loonie. Eh? The $2 coin is called a toonie. And we don't think it's funny. So, by all means, please come to Canada on your bug out. In fact, all joking aside, I think a lot of the Americans in the cities near to, and the states near to Canada, should really seriously look at this. If you are close to Detroit, if you're close to Chicago, and that's about as far as even New York to some degree. A lot of people are in Rochester and stuff like that. They're at a dead end of a peninsula that could easily be cut off by radiation issues and SHTF, and they won't really have anywhere to go. Whereas if they break across the bay, across the Lake Ontario, they actually have a huge continent behind them that they can actually explore. So I do think you should consider, if you live close to Canada, coming here for bug out. I think if you're thinking of retiring and doing a homestead, I again would consider Canada. I think we're overlooked a lot by a lot of people, and I don't think it's actually in your best interest to be patriotic. I would bug out to the States like that if I felt it was much safer to do so than bugging out in Canada. I don't. Now I might be deluded, I don't know, you can tell me below in the comments. I don't know. But come to Canada on holiday, spend your American dollars up here. We're not as bad as you might think we are. Come and consider becoming one of the Canadian crew, eh? That's about all for me. Au revoir.